So you're playing Genshin, you're doing some 10 pulls, and while you don't get a 5-star, you do get 4-star Lan Yan. Now, what do you get with Lan Yan besides the newest 4-star character in Genshin? Well, Lan Yan is an Anemo-wielding Catalyst user who is our first Anemo Shielder. And in this video, we're going to look at the basics of Lan Yan. So Lan Yan is a Catalyst user, meaning that her normal attacks and her charge attacks are going to do Anemo damage. We're not talking about shenanigans with like Eye of Perception. We're just talking about regular, normal, and charge attacks that are going to do Anemo. And her charge attack actually has a really, really cool animation. Now, Lan Yan's skill is going to have a tap and a hold. If we tap it, she is going to kind of dash forward, teleport forward, kind of like Chiori, you know, who is the original character that could do this, because we have like Electro Chiori and Kaching, and we have Dendro Chiori and I'll Hate Them. Now we have an Anemo Chiori in Lan Yan. Now this is going to do an instance of Anemo damage, but it's also going to create a shield. And the shield is also going to have a really unique property from one of her passives where if you hit an enemy with an element, the shield can actually absorb the element on the enemy, turning the shield into a shield of that element. So if we attack this enemy that has pyro on them, then her shield is going to turn red for pyro. Now these shields are going to have a better absorption of that element, so this would be able to take more pyro damage than anything else. Also, if we use her skill, you're going to notice that after she gets the shield, she's also going to kind of jump back up in the air, which if we follow this up with a normal attack, then it's going to trigger that same passive where it's going to do another instance of that elemental damage. So you're going to notice that if we do this and we send her back up in the air and we click normal attack, we're going to do an instance of Anemo damage, and then right underneath it we have this little instance of pyro damage. That is because she absorbed pyro whenever we hit the enemy with her skill. Now if we use the hold version, it's simply going to let us aim. It's going to do the exact same thing, but it's just going to let us aim, just like Chiori, Kaching, and I'll Hate Them. Now also the shield that she creates does scale off of attack, so we need to remember that whenever we get to the artifacts on the weapon. Now her burst is going to do an instance of Anemo damage, and that's kind of really all it does. It does say that it pulls enemies in, nearby opponents in, so it's going to have a little bit of grouping, not like Kazuo or anything like that, but it is going to have a little bit, and then it's just going to do Anemo damage. Now before we get to our artifacts, if we look at her second passive, it's going to increase the damage of her skill and her burst based on her elemental mastery. So you can build her for attack, for shield botting, or you can build her for EM for like a swirl DPS, right? You do have both ways to build her. So now we're going to look at artifacts, and for her best artifact select, it's going to be VV. This is going to give her an Anemo damage bonus as well as a swirl damage bonus, but it's also going to make the enemies weaker to the element that you swirl. So this is another VV shredder. And for main stats on these artifacts, you're just going to be doing attack across the board to increase the shield strength of her. Now another option is also going to be Instructor Set, where this is going to get up her EM as well as the EM of your party after you cause a reaction. So this is just another way to use her as a buffer. If like you already have an Anemo swirler like Kazuo in that team, then you can put Instructor Set on her to get EM up in the team if it's a team where you want the EM. So not necessarily something like a freeze team. The EM there would not be useful. Now for weapons, you do have some stuff like Skyward Atlas, which is going to be getting up attack percent as well as a little bit of elemental damage bonus. And you have Flowing Purity, which is also going to increase attack percent. So both of these are going to be very, very good for increasing the strength of her shield. Now you do have something like Sacrificial Fragments if you're going to be running her in like a swirl team where you want a ton of EM. And because her shield doesn't have permanent uptime like Layla's does, then having that second use might actually be really, really good. Now, of course, you do always have the good old reliable Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayer, which is phenomenal. Can she use the HP? No, but the passive is phenomenal to be using her as a support. Now with Lan Yan, we do have something kind of brand new in the Genshin sphere, right? We do have an Anemo VV Shredder, which is phenomenal. We also have a Shielder, which is really, really good in a lot of teams. And we have the ability to use Thrilling Tales. So this combination of these three things actually allow for her to slot into some very interesting teams. Like Arlecchino Mono Pyro can be very, very good because in a Mono Pyro team, you don't necessarily need Sucrose's EM sharing, but having the shield for Arlecchino is actually very, very beneficial. In this kind of version of Child International team with Tartaglia, Xiangling, Lan Yan, and Benny, this is also very, very good because from what we've seen so far, Lan Yan can snapshot attack buffs with her shield, with her skill. So what we can do is that we can drop Bennett's Burst, go to Lan Yan, use her skill because she's going to snapshot the attack buff from Bennett's Burst. Then, with Thrilling Tales on her, go over to Xiangling and use Xiangling's Burst that's going to snapshot Bennett's Burst, and it's going to snapshot Thrilling Tales, and Lan Yan has swirled and shredded Pyro because of VV. Then going to Tartaglia, using his skill, applying Hydra so that way Zhang Ling can be our main damage dealer in this team, getting those vapes. So you can put her into some very, very interesting teams where you need the VV Shredder, the attack buff is super, super nice, and you want the shield. Maybe the character needs some interruption resistance, right? So she does kind of fill this really interesting slot on some teams. Now that is going to be it for this video. Cookie has green hair, I have a blue hair, and I'll see you in the next one.